Hi everyone, my name is Toby. Thank you for joining me today. Today we are doing a beginner sketch, a sketch where we focus on a really simple 5-step process. The same process that I use for all of my sketching really, but we make it so that you, and I mean you, anyone, can produce a really fun and interesting bit of sketching without any experience really. And we do that by simplifying. And as soon as we simplify things, we realise, yeah, we can do this. If you are interested in more of this kind of teaching style and really learning the basic concepts of sketches, then join my free course. I've linked it below, along with a couple more beginners videos, which you might be interested in watching straight after this one. My free course, and it's totally free, is 10 days of sketching. Over 10 days, you'll get a different sort of idea every day. You'll get a different video to watch every day and a different sort of few paragraphs I've written to give you some backstory. And through that sketch, which will take you 5-10 minutes, you'll learn something new every day. You'll develop your skills, develop your confidence, and you'll see that you too can sketch. Everyone can sketch. Not everyone sketches the same, but everyone can sketch in their style. With that, let's jump into this video and let's see that we today, together in 20 odd minutes, we can produce a really fun urban sketch. So what are we using for today's sketch? Well, not much. I've got a pen. This happens to be a fountain pen, but you could use a fine liner. The only important bit is this has got waterproof ink in, and this technique that I'm using today works best with waterproof ink. If you want more details on the inks I like to use, check out my website. There's links in the description, and you'll find out all sorts about the inks. I've got blog posts about inks as well, so check that out. The other bit, we've got some brushes. So the brushes, I've got size 12, size 6 round, or you could just have one brush. Size 8 or 10 is really convenient, does everything brush for simple sketching. Then I've got colours. Again, look, loads of colours, 14 colours, but we're using 5. The 5 we're using are 3 primary colours, a red, a blue, a yellow, and 2 murky colours. I'm using a kind of grey, Moonglow, and I'm using a brown, Sepia. But you could use any dark, like a Payne's grey, and any brown, like a burnt umber, burnt sienna. The exact colours, aren't important. Just the concepts and how we use them, and that's exactly what we'll talk about. The other bits, of course, you'll need some paper. I'm using a bit of A4 cold pressed watercolour paper. We need a little towel or some kitchen rolls, some water in a pot, and then you're good to go. Maybe you need a space. Yeah, you need some space to sketch as well. So I've got a desk, but I'm sure you've got somewhere, your lap, you'll find somewhere to sketch. So step 1 is shapes. When I say shapes, I'm talking about taking what's on the image and thinking about it in a different way, thinking about it in a way which makes it easy to take it from the reference onto our page. And I mean simple things, squares, rectangles, circles. So let's take our building on the left. We've got 2 rectangles. But they're not just rectangles, they're rectangles with some texture. And that texture we start thinking about right now. If we start with this rectangle being all firm, bold, hard lines, well, that means that that's on the page already forever. So just get that sort of wobble in earlier. The bottom rectangle, for example, that's got bricks. So as we're drawing it, add those little brick textures in. Find these little tufts of grass along the bottom. Just add that little step for the door to come in later. There's a couple of sort of black bricks. You can add those in as texture as well. And then remember on the side, get those bricks in again. So not just shapes, but shapes with textures. Take it to the next level. The roof feels complicated, but it's basically a little triangle. So this would be a triangle, and then a big rectangle, again with that texture. And at the top, we can already just use these kind of those ridge tiles as a textural mark, a textural line. On the side, we then got the next big shape, this big rectangle with a triangle at the edge. Again, same idea. And just give it a little loop down. It sort of sags, and again, that is showing us this is an old and interesting house. Over here, we can then bring down the edge of our next shape, which is another rectangle, again with a little step for the door, little tufts of grass maybe. Bring that up, and look, it's a wonky line. That's fine. I'm absolutely okay with some of my lines going a bit wonky. What else have we got? Well, look, at the side, we can sort of add in this circle for the tree and suggest a little rectangle for the wall. But we can ghost it out because it's not important. It's not our focal point. Same here. We can find these shapes for the next house, but we can ghost them out. We cannot finish things off. We can leave them nice and light. So there's something there, you know, just something, just, you know, what is it? Not quite sure. Probably another house. Not important. The eye sort of looks there and gets drawn into the interesting things. The other big shape, of course, is this pavement. And then it's got a little rectangle as well. So we just bring in that edge. And now we've got a 3D pavement, not just a pavement, a 3D pavement. And before we finish shapes, we need to find little shapes. And the little shapes are things like these windows. So we've got a rectangle. And within that rectangle, we have 2 more rectangles. And by doing shapes within shapes, we build up the frames. But we don't have to draw the frames. It's maybe easier to see in the doorway. So we got this shape, then a little rectangle within it. Look, now we have a doorway and a frame. And we can do the same with our windows here. And I know what you're saying. The windows have got loads and loads of windows in them, haven't they? They do. And that might become important for our sketch later on. And it might not. And at the moment, all we know that is if we add in loads and loads of lines, A, it will take forever. B, it will be a bit stressful. And C, we might regret it. But we can always add them later, so we don't need to do all those sort of little details, little shapes yet. Here we got basically a square with 2 rectangles in it. And above we got the same idea. Now a couple of things you'll probably notice. As I'm talking away, I haven't measured, and so some of my proportions are a bit off. Look, these windows aren't big enough. That's fine. Now, if that's important to you, then I suggest not talking as you sketch, concentrating a little bit more. For me, it's not important. For me, the general idea is what's important, not the little details. What I am going to do is add some of these other shapes. So look, all these sort of Tudor style wooden areas, they're just creating more shapes. So if we just look and we bring them down, what we're doing, we're just drawing a load of rectangles. So let's just draw a lot of rectangles coming across this scene. And the only bit, you know, I might get the number right, I might get the number wrong. The only bit I'm making care of is to line up these with the edges of the frames, because then it all just fits together nicely. And we can find this one, and look, we can even find these little ones at the side as well if we want. Or if you don't find them. What else? Well, really important for my sketching are chimneys. Absolutely love adding a chimney. Such a sort of great place to have some punchy colours or just experiment, explore, have some fun. And what is a chimney? Square, rectangle, and some sort of cylinders or squares, however you want to think about them really. And that's what it is. It's just thinking in shapes. It's not about naming every shape and getting it right. It's about thinking about it in a simple way. And we're almost there. The big shapes, little shapes. The last bit is just to press quite hard with whatever pen you're using. Press a little bit harder. And we're just going to look for those darkest areas. And those darkest areas are going to get a bold line. Nothing more than a bold line for now. Shadows and things come later. But just a little bold line. That already gives a surprisingly big amount of shape and presence to what we've got here. And there you go. Step 1 done. Shapes. And what do we do next? Step 2, some colour. So I'm going to be using my bigger brush, or if you just have one brush, just use one brush. I like to let the colours paint themselves. So I like to start with water. So I put on some water. The other key thing is I don't want to paint everywhere. This is a quick sketch. It's light-hearted. It's fun. Let the negative space, the white paper, do some work as well as the colours. So popping some water on, just look at how that colour, like I said, it paints itself. Another way of getting it to paint itself is doing some splashes, and then you can come back with a clean brush and you can move some water around to sort of incorporate those splashes. And now, instead of having to put the paint on the page, you let the paint put itself down and do the work itself. And look, now we have this lovely varied sky, which if you look at the reference, is exactly what we have in the reference. I haven't painted everywhere, I haven't brought the sky down everywhere. Instead, I've brought the sky to focus in on our sort of key area, our key focal point. That, by the way, that is cobalt blue, but any nice primary bright blue will do. Or you could experiment and do something completely different. Next, I'm going to jump down. I'm going to come to this sort of yellow brick. And you know it's yellow, so let's use some yellow. Makes sense, doesn't it? But I'm not just going to do yellow, I'm going to do yellow with a tiny bit of red. My yellow is Hansa yellow medium, my red is Scarlet Lake. And by doing that, we'll end up with a slightly more orangey yellow. And we can vary that. So what I'm not doing is just taking one mix. What I'm doing is I'm bringing one mix in and then changing that mix, adding a bit more red, a bit less red, a bit more water. And now, look, we've got this interesting varied wash coming all the way across. I'm going to continue that into the next building. And I know the next building's not the same colour, but we're simplifying, we're sketching, we are being quick and expressive, not realistic. We want it to feel like the scene, but it doesn't have to be exact. That in mind, I'm actually just going to bring some of this colour down the page again as well. Start getting the sort of building to interact with its surroundings. I don't like painting by numbers. I don't like just keeping all the colour in its sort of little zone. I like it to spread and have fun. So far we've just used primary colours, red, blue, and what's the other one? Yellow. Red, blue, and yellow. Now I'm going to start using a couple of tonal colours. So I'm going to use something called Moonglow, which is a sort of deep grey, but it's got some other tones in it as well. So it sometimes feels a bit red, sometimes feels a bit blue. And I'm going to bring that into the pavement, and that will blend with these other colours. It will go up, it will come down, but it will separate the pavement out as well. And I want something else. I want something sort of a bit dark and interesting for the roof. So I'm going to use a sepia, a dark brown, and that's going to be my main roof colour. And that I'm just going to bring in, and then again, same idea as the sky, just let it paint itself a bit. We can drop in a bit more of that brown, drop in a bit of that brown there. We can come back in with a bit of our Moonglow. An alternative for Moonglow is something like Payne's Grey, or mixing an ultramarine with a burnt sienna or a burnt umber. There's loads and loads of others as well, just giving you a couple of ideas. With this same colour, I'm going to come and give my house a little shadow. So we're now looking at the darkest areas, but we're still doing a light shadow. And look at how everything's soft. So in this, at the beginning, I said it was loose colours. We're being really loose and gentle with our colours. We're letting them do the work. We're not pressurising too much. We're having a bit of fun, and we'll see what happens. So we react. I react to watercolours. I don't try to control them too much. I try to let them have a play, see what happens. Look, this is going to leak everywhere. That's fine. It's going to be interesting. It will produce some kind of effect that I couldn't hope to produce if I tried to do it all myself, if I didn't let them have a little bit of a play, have a bit of fun on the page. And now, with those loose colours done, 5 colours we used in total, that's all. With those loose colours done, I'm going to let things dry, and we'll come back in with some slightly bolder colours. And there we are, mostly dry. Now I say mostly because you can see there's water here. And I like it to be a little bit wet still, so that I can still have some soft colours. Soft being, look how all these colours are blended together. That's soft. Hard as if it's got lots of edges, if each colour is separate and not quite flowing together. Now I'm never going to go back in the sky. I almost never layer a sky. I like having that one go at a fun and expressive sky, and then just working from there. But everywhere else, I am going to go back and have a little bit of more fun with, a bit more interest. I'm going to start with a smaller brush, size 6 round brush, and my sepia up in this roof. And I'm just going to make it bolder. And this is what we can do in watercolours. We can layer our colours and make them bolder, make them deeper. But what we've got to do is not rush the process. So just remember that you can always add more, but watercolour you can't really take away, not when it's dry at least. So it's important just to take your time and remember this layer will dry, it will look a bit fainter, and we could add more if we want. Remember as well, we're keeping things interesting. So this is at the moment a flat wash of sepia, but look at that roof, look how interesting it is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in with some Moonglow. I just drop it in, and now we've got these kind of moody touches, and again we can find where we think there's shadows and we can make those moody areas. Remember though, look at that, look at those little reds and yellows as well. So let's just find some touches of that kind of really happy brightness that there is in there. So that's some red and then some yellow. And look at how these colours will blend out and produce really interesting effects. And it's not what's in the roof, but the roof has these ideas, and I'm just giving the roof's ideas some of my own sort of creativity and seeing what happens. The chimney, now we didn't touch it before because I didn't want to affect the sky too much, but now the sky's nice and dry, so we can come in and we can do similar things. I'm going to leave the chimneys for now. We'll leave the chimneys and we'll come back and see what they need at the end. And we'll make some decisions about that as well. This I'm going to leave because, again, it feels like it's just the tops we can see. And we're going to make some decisions, like I said, at the end. Now, underneath, let's just jump down. Let's jump all the way down. And let's really find some happy brightness here. So again, we're just layering and just making things feel a bit bolder. Here, I'm going to start with my same yellow and red and just start suggesting a little bit more brick shapes, for example. Just little suggestions that there are bricks here. And that's not drawing a load of bricks, it's not painting a load of bricks. It's painting the suggestion of bricks. It's painting these kind of linear shapes which cross over, as well as having those more mellow washes, those more sort of general washes across the page. Look also that down here it's really murky, so why not just bring in some of our sepia from elsewhere. And I'm going to come in now with a clean brush, just soften up some of these edges, just little bits of softening. And just like magic, we've got an interesting, varied, textured wash, which took no effort at all, really. Underneath, let's get more of that Moonglow, and let's emphasize our pavement, our sidewalk. And yes, look, actually look at it. Is that pavement dark? In reality, it's not, but that's fine. We're making artistic decisions. You know, I made it dark to separate it out from everything else. Next, we've got just that shadow. Let's just amplify that shadow with a little layer, again, of my Moonglow. And here I'm going to just drop that Moonglow in, and I'm going to let it do its thing. Let's just see what happens. And that's it. For this layer of watercolour, that's it. Now, what we're going to do next, we're going to come back in with our pen. So we need this completely dry. We haven't finished with our colour, so don't panic. There are some bright touches to come. But first, there's a little bit more pen work to just start suggesting those final details. So we are back and we are pretty much dry. And I'm going to come back with my pen. Again, I've got my fountain pen, but you might have a fine liner. And here we're going to just restructure a little bit. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, look, some of our shapes have lost or gone back, or, you know, maybe we've found new interesting things, little shapes here with our watercolours. So we're going to find those things, suggest them a little more. Firstly, I'm just going to come in and refine the edge of my building, remembering to keep that textured feeling. And in doing this, we'll be making the line a little bolder, and bold lines come forward. So suddenly this house will jump forward again in front of all that colour. We can make this line really bold. Remember, not making it too stiff so that we've still got lovely sort of feel of texture. Here as well, we could just add loads of texture. We've got this really interesting edge to our colour. We can just bring our line over to that edge. Same here, look, we've got this line here, but the colour across a bit. So we can bring that line over with lots of textures. And suddenly we've got a roof which is far more interesting. Same up here, we can just suggest a bit more shadow, a bit more texture. And then on our ridge line, if we just come underneath all of that set of ridge tiles will just separate out the ridge tiles and the rest of the roof. These little shapes probably wanting something extra as well, aren't they? And we said we got some refining of them to do. So why don't we think now what we can do to refine them? Well, do we want to draw every window? I think not, because I think drawing every window would actually make things overworked. But what we can do, perhaps, is suggest just a few little lines like this, just a few. I've turned my pen upside down, so you might want to be really gentle with your pen. You might want to turn it upside down if you're using a fountain pen. And this way we can just draw some much fainter lines where we're suggesting that detail. Over here we've got bigger windows, so we can be a little bit more firm, can't we? We're not going to overwork these big shapes with just a single extra line. Under here, let's just define a bit. And then the fun is where we go around finding some bricks. So this is where I said, look, we found these little shapes. Look at these textures. Look at these little watercolor textures. Now we can use those watercolor textures to produce some brick shapes. We can find some elsewhere, but we can also use what's happened with our colors. Same in the roof. Just a few little suggestions of a tile. Really important not to overdo this, because suddenly your lovely little light sketch can become totally overworked. But a few touches like that and we're good. So we're looking really good. I would just take it there. Let's finish our pen work, put it to one side and get our colours back ready for our bold, interesting, bright, punchy colours. So what are we going to do now? We're going to find key things or invent some key things. So for me, something we could do to make this really fun is reflect a nice bold blue in these windows. So we come back in with the same blue, the cobalt blue we used, and we can pop in a punchy blue in these windows. Don't paint by numbers, don't fill them up, but just a little dab in. Then, alongside that, a little bit of Moonglow to get some darkness. If you wanted the windows to glow, you could add a little bit of yellow, and that way you get these kind of interesting mingling colours. Now we've left off the doorways. That's because I wasn't sure, do we want them black? Do we want them something more interesting? For the sake of argument, let's do one dark. So I'm going to use my Moonglow. Let's make this one dark because this house is already a bit darker. And having done that, you can then go, does that work? Is that too correct, too boring? Well, actually it works quite well, doesn't it? So let's leave that. We can soften in this edge a little bit so the darkness of the door blends down. But anyway, let's have a bit of fun with the other door. Even though that works fine, let's say you wanted to have a bit of fun. So we just change the colour, because why not? What's the problem with doing that? We're the artists, we're getting to make our decisions. We can blend it with a bit of Moonglow, and now we've got a really interesting door. What else do you want to do? Well, look, this is now really dark, so we need to level up our shadows again to prevent that door from being too highly contrasting, from taking over the image too much. So we just find our key shadows, we level them up, we add some extra oomph to them. Similarly, this red is now really punchy here, and this is the moment I've been waiting for, because I just love making my chimneys sing with a little dollop of red. I just think it's a really fun thing to do with chimneys. They're not always red, but they're often red. So I like making my chimneys red. And I've overdone it a bit, but I can pull that colour back, can pull this colour back. And that's the important thing with watercolour. Not sort of rushing, working quickly, but not rushing, not panicking, certainly. And when you don't panic, you can correct so much if it just doesn't quite work the first time. Now, one other interesting feature of this, of course, is these boards, these Tudor boards. So now we can come in. I'm going to use my Sepia. I'm just going to suggest, I'm not going to paint everyone, and I'm not going to try and fill the white lines, but I'm just going to suggest with really gentle strokes that these are brown, not white, because that's kind of an important feature for me in this scene. And is there any more? Yes, because we've got around the windows as well. I remember adding those with my pen now. So there we go. We could also do them around here. We could leave this white. I'm going to leave it white. Anything else? Anything else? Yes, one more thing. And remember, this is all optional. Like at any point you could change, you could stop, you could add different things. What I'm going to do, I'm going to mix a bit of my yellow, a bit of my blue, till I get a nice mellow green. And with that green, I'm going to find two things. Well, number one, this little tree off to the side. Number two, these little bits of green down here. So we can then just produce these tufts of grass, which we had with our lovely bits of ink. And we can do a few splashes, bit of a splash over here. I love popping in a yellow line on roads. It really tells you that this is a road. It's a fun feature. It's another bold bit of colour. I love using these same little dollops of bright colour on a few bricks. And you see how we could just keep going. We could just, you know, have fun for so long. And at some point we've got to stop, because at some point it's going to be too much. And it's better to stop before you think you're done than after you know that you've done too much. So last little bits, going to be some splashes, little gentle blue splashes in the sky, little gentle yellow and red to the sides, just to fill this page. Now if I wanted to hang this, it's almost ready to go. Almost ready. The only thing I need to do is sign it. So I'm going to pop my initials down here. This is St Neots High Street. So thank you everyone, that is this done. Really simple, 5 steps. And I'm sure that anyone watching this can do it, just like anyone watching this can do the videos I've linked in the comment below. I've got loads of more beginner videos, so have a go at drawing a fun shop front, have a go at drawing a really easy landscape scene using these same ideas by clicking on the links in the description or in the comment I've pinned to this video. Thank you very much. So thank you everyone for watching my little sketching videos. If you enjoy my content, please do subscribe to my channel because it makes me really, really happy. Thanks again.